Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So I'm going to be discussing common conspiracy theories and sharing the information I came up with after doing my own research. But before we dive into the first conspiracy theory, let's define what a conspiracy theory is. According to Merriam-Webster, it means a theory that explains an event or set of circumstances as a result of a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators. And according to Google, it's a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. Usually that organization is considered to be the government or some variation of the government, and the group is typically referred to as just they, with a capital T. So now that we have an understanding of what a conspiracy theory is, let's jump into the first one. If you've been on any type of social media in at least the last 5 years, then I'm sure you've come across at least one person who's brought up the subject of H.A.A.R.P. If you were right now years old when you first heard about it, no worries, you've come to the right place. The theory is that H.A.A.R.P is an advanced technology that the government owns that's located in Alaska, and they use it to create severe weather in order to control the population. So things like hurricanes, droughts, torrential rains, monsoons, and some even believe earthquakes are being controlled by them with the capital T. Scary stuff, right? Now, if you go to the Google, and yes, I call it the Google. If you go to the Google and look up H.A.A.R.P, there are a bunch of results that pop up. The first being their official website, which is kind of puzzling considering that if they had some sort of nefarious plot going, why would they take the time out to create a website about it? But I digress. Now, when you go over to the H.A.A.R.P website, the first thing I notice is that at the top of the home page, it has, matter of fact, I'll go back to it and read it to you. University of Alaska Fairbanks, right? So is the University of Alaska in cahoots with the U.S. government to, control the population using the weather? I don't know. If anyone out there has attended the University of Alaska or knows someone who has attended the University of Alaska, it would be great if you could come to the comments and let us know that, if, y'all are about that world population control life or if it's something else. I'd be really interested to find out. But anyway, now they also have a frequently asked questions page. And when you go to that page, it has a bunch of questions that need answers, like what is H.A.A.R.P? What is it used for? Why was it developed? Who owns it? And so on and so forth. And basically to summarize, H.A.A.R.P is a high frequency active auroral research program. Okay. And they say that they're using it to conduct fundamental study of the physical processes at work in the very highest portions of our atmosphere. And the reason why they're studying it is because they are wanting to research the physical and electrical properties of the Earth's ionosphere. Remember that word. We're going to come back to it. Because it can affect our military and civilian communication and navigation systems. Now, it is true that the government, or basically the Air Force Research Laboratory and Space Vehicles Directorate at Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico, they previously owned it, right? So technically, That's a branch of the government. Okay, the government owns it. But in August of 2015, they transferred it to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And they are the owners and operators of it at this point. Because the Air Force Research Laboratory, they ran out of funding to continue running it. Right? Now it goes into who owns the land, why the Air Force sign's still up, all that good stuff. If you're interested to know more about it, feel free to come and Google H.A.A.R.P yourself and come to the website and check out these frequently asked questions, right? It also talks about ionospheric research and all that good stuff. So what exactly is the ionosphere, you ask? And this is really pertinent information, I promise. I'm getting to a point. Just stick with me, right? So I'm like, okay, I know there are different levels to the atmosphere. I didn't know all the names and what order they went in, right? So I then went back to the Google and I looked that information up, right? We're just connecting these dots right now. So we know what H.A.A.R.P is. We know who runs it, or what they claim H.A.A.R.P is and who they say runs it, right? We'll just say that, throw an allegedly in there and what have you. But anyway, so again, ionosphere, that stuck out. I'm like, okay, that's a part of the atmosphere. They claim that they're studying space weather, but they're talking about a part of the Earth's atmosphere. So, something's not adding up. That's what I said. So I went and I looked up ionosphere. Well, actually, I went and looked up the different layers of the Earth's atmosphere, right? And according to UCAR, Center for Science Education, Earth's atmosphere has a series of layers, each with its own specific traits. Moving upward from ground level, these layers are named the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere. Okay, no mention of ionosphere. But again, stick with me. We're going to get to it. So again, the troposphere is the closest level of the atmosphere to the ground. Most clouds appear here, mainly because of the 99% of the water vapor in the atmosphere that is found in the troposphere, right? So again, first level is troposphere. That's where most of the clouds are. The next layer is called the stratosphere. The stratosphere is right above that area, and it's a much higher altitude. The air is a lot thinner, and a lot of commercial passenger jets fly in the lower stratosphere, partly because this less turbulent layer provides a smoother ride. Also, the jet stream flows near the border between the troposphere and the stratosphere. Next is the mesosphere, right? Typically, meteors burn out in the mesosphere. The air is far too thin to breathe, but they're still out there, right? But it's too thin to breathe. This is where you get those fighter jet pilots that have to wear the masks and all that stuff because they can't breathe. After the mesosphere, you have the thermosphere. And again, even thinner air. And typically high energy X-rays and UV radiation from the sun are absorbed in the thermosphere. Many satellites actually orbit Earth within the thermosphere, right? And then after the thermosphere, there's a final layer called the exosphere. Now, a lot of people don't consider the exosphere part of our atmosphere. They consider the thermosphere to be the highest, uppermost layer of our atmosphere, but the thermosphere, again, has extremely thin air, making this layer even more space-like than the thermosphere. In fact, the air in the exosphere is constantly, though very gradually, leaking out of Earth's atmosphere into outer space. And there is no clear-cut upper boundary where the exosphere finally fades away into space, right? Now, those are the different layers of the atmosphere of the Earth. You'll notice that ionosphere was not mentioned. So the ionosphere is not an actual distinct layer like the others mentioned. Instead, the ionosphere is a series of regions and parts of the mesosphere and thermosphere where high energy radiation from the sun has knocked electrons loose from their parent atoms and molecules. The electrically charged atoms and molecules that are formed in this way are called ions, giving the ionosphere its name and endowing this region with some special properties. So H.A.A.R.P is studying the ionosphere, which is located in regions of the mesosphere and thermosphere. Remember that, okay? Because people believe H.A.A.R.P is controlling the weather. The weather is formed in the atmosphere. But my question was, what layer or layers of the atmosphere is weather formed, right? I felt like that was a really good question that would tie this all together and tell us unequivocally whether or not H.A.A.R.P can control the weather or if it's really just a study of the ionosphere, right? So I went back to the Google and I searched what layer of the atmosphere does weather occur, right? And what I came up with is this: the troposphere and the stratosphere. Almost all weather occurs in the troposphere, basically the lowest layer that goes up to 10 to 15 kilometers. It's about 6 miles. Any really big storms that vertically extend past the tropopause, which is the boundary layer between the troposphere and stratosphere, go into the stratosphere. But this is usually really large hurricanes and really big thunderstorms, right? So again, weather is formed in the troposphere, which is the lowest layer that has clouds, which is also needed to form any sort of weather. And again, the stratosphere. If those clouds come together and form some sort of huge storm system, they may stretch up into the stratosphere. But again, our weather is formed in the stratosphere and troposphere and then stratosphere. Now, remember what I said. Pay attention to that word ionosphere, right? And do y'all remember which level the ionosphere or which parts of the atmosphere the ionosphere was a part of? Y'all remember that part? That's right. It was the mesosphere and the thermosphere, which were the two higher, uppermost layers of the atmosphere, not the two lower ones where the weather is formed. So hopefully, you guys, interest has been piqued and you're encouraged to go and look this stuff up for yourself. Like, I am not convinced that H.A.A.R.P is controlling the weather at this point. I'm just saying. But again, look it up yourself and always remember that nations perish for lack of knowledge. All right. Take care.